Gladys and gentlemen, there is something stirring in your spirit that refuses to let you settle. You've been trying to tame it, trying to shrink it, trying to reason with it, but you can't unhear the call. You can't unknow the weight that sits on your chest at night, reminding you that you were never created to blend in. You were never designed to survive in silence. You were called to lead, called to rise, called to reign. But you've been surrounded by voices that told you to be quiet, told you to be small, told you to be grateful for crumbs when the table was meant for you. And I know how easy it is to start believing those voices when they're all you hear. I know what it feels like to want to break out but not know how, to feel caged in circumstances, locked up in limitations that weren't your fault but somehow became your responsibility. Can I speak to the fighter in you that's been hiding behind fear? You see, you've mistaken your wilderness for weakness. But the wilderness was never meant to break you. It was meant to build you. It was meant to strip away the distractions, the opinions, the comparisons, and remind you that there is a force inside of you greater than the opposition around you. You don't need approval to be powerful. You don't need applause to be anointed. You don't need a platform to have purpose. What you need is to remember. Remember who you are. Remember who sent you. Remember what you carry. There's a reason you feel restless, a reason you're uncomfortable staying where you've always been, because deep down you know this isn't it. Deep down you know you were made for more. And I know it's terrifying to step into the unknown. I know it's easier to stay with what's familiar, but baby, familiarity can be fatal to your destiny. You've been pacing the edges of your promise, wondering when your time will come, but maybe, just maybe, your time is waiting on your courage, waiting on you to stop asking for permission to walk in power, waiting on you to stop waiting, because nothing changes until you decide to stop playing defense and start taking territory. There is something sacred about someone who refuses to be silenced, who refuses to bow to the circumstances that tried to kill them, someone who rises up in spite of the trauma, in spite of the loss, in spite of the fear, and says, I'm still here. That kind of spirit doesn't just survive, it disrupts. It shifts atmospheres, it intimidates insecurity, and it doesn't apologize for its presence. The world will always try to convince you to water down your fire, to play nice, to make yourself digestible. But what if your edge is the very thing that was meant to set you apart? What if your scars aren't shameful but sacred? What if the very thing they said disqualified you is the thing God will use to elevate you? You don't get to authority without adversity. You don't get to dominion without discipline. You don't get to glory without grit. So stop resenting the pressure. It's forming you. Stop cursing the process. It's refining you. Stop doubting your power. It's already in you. It's time to step into rooms like you belong there, like heaven assigned you to be there, because it did. You don't need to be the loudest to be the leader. You just need to be unshakable, unmovable, rooted in the revelation that you were made to overcome. So when life tries to roar louder than your purpose, you stand firm. When fear starts screaming in your ears, you don't shrink. You square your shoulders and speak back. You remind it who you are, not what you've been through, not what they called you, not what you lost, who you are. And hear me when I say this. Fighting doesn't always look like swinging. Sometimes it looks like standing. Sometimes it looks like praying when you feel like quitting. Sometimes it looks like showing up when nobody clapped last time. Sometimes it looks like keeping your vision alive when everything around you looks dead. There's a warrior in you that's been waiting to rise, a divine boldness that isn't loud but lethal, not reckless but resolute, not flashy but focused. And when that boldness starts walking in truth, atmospheres shift, chains break, cycles stop. Generational curses shatter because you decided enough was enough. You wanted with the Lord because you picked yourself up out of your seat. It's not about being perfect. It's not about having it all figured out. It's about deciding you're not going to keep living like you don't matter. Like your voice doesn't carry weight, like your gift doesn't break yokes, like your presence doesn't shift rooms. You've been trying to hide when you were born to stand out. Let them be uncomfortable with your growth. Let them be confused by your courage. Let them be confused by your courage. Let them talk. Let them walk. Because what's ahead of you is too heavy to carry the approval of people who were never assigned to your purpose. You have been through too much to keep doubting your own authority. You have cried too many tears to keep acting like you're powerless. You have survived too many battles to keep shrinking to fit into places you've already outgrown. So rise up. In the middle of the storm, in the face of the opposition, in the tension of the not yet, rise up. Not because it's easy, not because it's popular, but because you were born for this. And when it gets hard, and it will, you remind yourself, this fight isn't bigger than your faith, this moment isn't greater than your mission, and this mountain isn't stronger than your God. There's a roar in your spirit that cannot be silent. And it's not just for you, it's for the people who are waiting to see what courage looks like. It's for the ones who have been watching you, wondering if it's possible to rise from the ashes and still have fire in your bones. Show them it is. Just talk about purpose, walk in it. Don't just quote strength, embody it. Don't just survive, shake the ground you walk on, command your space, claim your inheritance, and never ever forget what lives in you is greater than what stands against you. You were not created to blend in, you were born to lead. That truth right there is what makes your spirit restless when you try to stay in places that are too small for your calling. That's why you can't seem to get comfortable doing what everyone else is doing. It's why you've never quite fit into the mold they built for you. Because you weren't made for the mold, you were made to break it. You weren't called to echo what already exists. You were chosen to initiate something new. There's something different about you, and you've always known it. You may not have had the words for it when you were younger. Maybe it felt like rejection, like loneliness, like being misunderstood. But all along, it was just the evidence of your distinction, the mark of your calling, the tension of knowing you were set apart for something that didn't come with a manual. You weren't overlooked, you were hidden, covered, protected, not forgotten but reserved, and yet the world around you tried to convince you to shrink, to soften your voice, to silence your convictions, to make yourself easier to digest. But deep down, something in you refused to die. That spark, that fight, that fire, it wouldn't let go of you no matter how many times you try to quiet it. And that's because you carry something this world desperately needs, and heaven refuses to let you forget it. Leadership isn't always about a title. It's not about being on a stage or holding a mic. Sometimes leadership looks like standing for truth when lies are louder. It looks like walking in integrity when shortcuts look easier. It looks like healing in public what most people hide in private. You lead by how you live, by how you love, by how you rise, even when life keeps trying to knock you down. It's not flashy, it's not always visible, it won't always get applause, but standing is spiritual warfare. When you refuse to back down, you're declaring that the promise is worth the pain. You're saying, I believe in what God said more than what I see. And that kind of stand is a threat to hell. That kind of stand shakes foundations. Standing requires surrender, not to defeat, but to the process. It means letting go of the need to always control, always explain, always defend. It means trusting that your silence doesn't mean weakness, it means wisdom. Because some battles don't need your energy, they need your obedience. They need you to stay grounded, stay focused, stay clothed in peace when everything around you is in chaos. Standing doesn't mean nothing's happening. It means you're positioning yourself to see God move. It means you're letting him be your defender, your avenger, your provider. You're refusing to get pulled into the drama, into the doubt, into the fear. You're saying, I don't have to fight dirty to win because the victory is already mine. And when you know who you are and whose you are, you realize you don't have to prove anything. You just have to hold your ground. There are some storms you outlast, there are some battles that are won in your posture, not your performance. You may feel like you're doing nothing, but standing is not nothing. Standing takes endurance. It takes maturity. It takes vision. Because when everything in your flesh wants to fix it, fight it, or flee from it, standing says, I will not be moved. I know what God said. I know what he promised. And I won't trade my position for temporary relief. You're not weak because you're not swinging. You're wise because you're standing. Because you know this isn't about proving your strength. It's about proving your faith. And faith doesn't always shout. Sometimes faith is still. Sometimes faith is patient. Sometimes faith looks like waking up again and choosing to believe again, even when nothing looks different. God is strengthening you in the stand. He's fortifying you in the wait. He's developing something in you that can't be rushed. And while others may be fighting loud, swinging wild, exhausting themselves, you're being preserved. You're learning how to fight without losing your peace, how to resist without retaliating, how to trust without trembling. So if all you can do right now is stand in your truth, stand in your identity, stand on the word, because the ones who stand are the ones who last. And what you're standing for is worth it. Even if it feels invisible, even if it's quiet, even if no one else sees it, God sees it, heaven sees it. And you better believe that ground you're holding is holy. There's a roar in your spirit that cannot be silenced. You may have tried to quiet it. Life may have tried to suffocate it, but it's still there, buried under disappointments, covered by fear, silenced by rejection, but never gone. That roar is your reminder, a holy defiance that rises up when you remember who you are, not who they told you to be, not who trauma tried to turn you into, but who you were always created to be. There's a voice inside you that was never meant to be tamed, a sound that was born in the fire, shaped in the storm, and destined to be released in power. You weren't built to stay silent, not with all that wisdom, not with all that oil, not with all those wounds that turn into weapons. There's too much in you to shrink, too much fire in your belly to sit quietly while the world tells you to water it down. Your roar is not noise, it's authority. It's the evidence of survival, of freedom, of divine identity that refuses to be boxed in by other people's comfort. And maybe you've had seasons where you forgot it was there, where you gave your voice away to shame, where you convinced yourself it was easier to stay quiet than to risk being misunderstood. But I need you to understand, your silence is not peace if it costs you your purpose. Holding it in might feel safe, but it will never feel satisfying. You weren't made to hold back. You were made to speak life, to speak truth, to speak heaven into dark places. That roar is generational. It's not just about you, it's about the chains it breaks, the cycles it interrupts, the legacy it bursts. When you open your mouth, it's not just volume, it's vision. It's destiny waking up. It's territory being claimed. That sound inside you, that bold, untamed, God-breathed sound, it carries weight, it carries healing, it carries answers someone's been praying for. And you don't have to sound like anyone else. Your roar won't echo theirs, and it's not supposed to. God didn't call you to be an echo. He called you to be a voice. Your sound is unique. It's distinct. It comes with its own frequency, one that hell recognizes and heaven endorses. You're not here to be palatable. You're here to be powerful. And every time you show up in your full truth, you're roaring. You don't need permission to rise. You don't need validation to be bold. You've been equipped, anointed, positioned. The enemy's strategy has always been to make you question your voice, because he knows if you ever fully embrace it, everything around you shifts. That's why the warfare has been so loud, because your roar is louder. That's why the attacks have been so personal, because your calling is powerful. You've been through too much to stay quiet now. You've learned too much, healed too much, overcome too much to pretend you don't carry fire. You do, and it's not pride, it's purpose, it's not ego, it's evidence of what you survived, of what you carry, of what's about to be released through you. So let it rise, let the roar out, let it disrupt everything that tries to muzzle you. You've been quiet long enough. There are rooms waiting for your voice. There are atmospheres waiting to be shifted. There are assignments waiting to be unlocked, not when you feel ready, but when you stop hiding, because that roar inside you, that is not random. That's revelation. That's heaven's sound breaking through earth systems. That's the sound of identity colliding with boldness. And when you release it, everything that was sleeping starts to wake up, including you. You were not made to blend in. You were born to stand out, to lead, and to break the molds that tried to confine your greatness. The wilderness you've walked through wasn't to break you, but to build you into something unshakable. It's in those unfamiliar places where your purpose gets sharpened, your faith gets tested, and your strength is developed. The familiar may try to keep you comfortable, but it's in the unknown that you truly discover your potential. Your scars are not signs of failure. They are testimonies of survival, sacred evidence of God's grace and your resilience. Every wound, every battle, every struggle has equipped you for the fight ahead. And when the time comes to rise, you don't need to swing wildly. You simply need to stand firm, knowing that your position in Christ is unshakable. Your roar isn't just noise. It's the sound of purpose, authority, and vision. It's a call to break barriers, to rise above what's comfortable, and to step into the fullness of your destiny. No matter how long it's been silenced, that roar will always find a way to break free. And when it does, the world will shift. Remember, your journey, your battles, your pain, they are not accidents. They are sacred moments in your life that prepare you for the greater purpose ahead. You are not just surviving, you are being prepared for great. And the moment you realize that your fight isn't against what you've been through, but against the limitations you've placed on yourself, you will rise. Stand tall, walk in boldness, and release the roar in your spirit. The world is waiting on you to take your place. Now go ahead and live it.